Now, broadcasting on StarWorldWideNetworks.com. It's time for Dr. Rademacher's Prescription for Transformation. Let's tap into your own authentic genius and live the life you desire.
You are now listening.
Join Dr. Rademacher for an enlightened conversation about our brain intelligence, our body intelligence, and our energy intelligence. And now, here's your host, Dr. Bart Rademacher.
I'm Dr. Bart Rademacher, and this is Prescription for Your Transformation. Real people, real conversations, and real success. And today it's just going to be a really long monologue. And I'm hoping you're going to like it because, part of what I like to do in this platform is really this dynamic interchange between the ideas of two different people. Obviously there's some kind of alignment in the conversations that I have with others. So it makes sense for me to have those conversations. But the truth is that I'm always introduced to new ideas from other people. And so for this time, for today, it really is all about the accumulation of all these different, conversations that I've had over time and giving you some sort of integration of those ideas so that maybe perhaps you can formulate some of your own versions of my truths and incorporate that in your life and see how it actually works for you. See, at the end of the day, we have to ask ourselves, who's driving the bus? Yes, who is driving the bus? When you think about it, there's a lot of people in this bus of our life. And there are parents, there are teachers, our siblings, people, that we look up to, our mentors, and sometimes, people that are notable in our world and that we look up to and think to ourselves, these are the people that we want to emulate. These are the people that we want to model. But the question then that we simply have to ask ourselves in every given moment, besides the critical question as to what is it that I really want, who's driving the bus? Now, as I keep on talking about this in many of my conversations, is that, there is only one victim, right? And that's the victim of our innocence, that victim of our immaturity. And when is that? That's that period of time, from birth to about the age of 5 or 7, the time of rapid evolvement, rapid learning, exploring the massiveness of the world around us, where we're going to have to understand this world, this magnificence in the world around us, with very few references to begin with. We're making new references, we're making new insights. And so the truth is that, we are victims of misconceptions because of that, because we lack all the maturity and the references and the experiences and the knowledge to really make the right kind of sense of our world around us. So what does that really mean? When you think about it, what if the conclusion you made on a certain event, good, bad, or indifferent, is one that was super negative? Or maybe it was super positive, and both were not appropriate for that particular event. And then that particular meaning of that event gets reinforced by other events similar to it, or simply ones that reinforce that thought. And so as we're growing up, we're developing this program, the software, if you will, just like any computer. You got these tech geeks that are creating all these incredible programs, to run these sophisticated systems of intelligence. My oldest son is one of those geeks. He loves the programming. He's a software engineer and he's very good at what he does. So the question is, what is that input that goes into our head? And how relevant or appropriate is it for the time that we're in then, and even more importantly, now? So what software are you running? And so from that context, we can ask ourselves, what's going on in the world around us? What about these crazy times that we live in today? But here again, we have to be honest with ourselves. First of all, as I mentioned earlier, who's driving the bus? Who's interpreting the things that are happening right now? Is it one of your super strict parents that's talking in your head right now, like this is not the right thing, or this is insane? Or maybe it's the other parent who is more open-minded, and free thinking, and say, wow, this is a great opportunity. Which one is it for you? Or is it someone else who taught you to be fearful of this type of craziness? Or is it that other person who's telling you, oh my gosh, this is exciting. Let's get out of the comfort zone. Because in their world, life begins outside of that comfort zone. So who is to say this time is really crazy? Well, a lot of things are going on. I'm not going to go into a political dissertation of right and wrong and what's going on. But I do see there's tons of chaos. But who's running that chaos? And is now any different than it was maybe 40 years ago, 50 years ago, the 60s, for those who can remember that. That was a crazy time too. But there have been other crazy times for other different reasons. And many of them turn to be turning points in our society as we develop new awareness. And so we're constantly recalibrating our universe. And it's constantly recalibrating based on the influence that either individuals have, or groups of individuals have, or communities. And so once again, we've got to ask ourselves, who's driving the bus for that? Who's actually driving the narrative? And is this a narrative that feels good? And if it feels good to you, then the more critical question that you have to ask yourself, what is it about this that makes me feel good? And is it truly the right thing? Is it truly in alignment with your beliefs and values? Or are you just in a space where I believe many people are, in a space of fear, in a space of scarcity, in a space of not enough, in a space of what we call survival? Because like in a state of survival, you'll grasp at anything. And so when we've got that, what I call the identity crisis, we're beings of meaning. Everything has to have a meaning. Because without meaning, it's really treacherous, it's really scary, it's really dangerous to be navigating this world if there is no meaning. And there's meaning everywhere, there's meaning in everything. And so when there's a gap, and the brain doesn't like gaps, this is why these TV series do so freaking well. It's because at the end of each, episode, there's a gap, there's a hole, and you've got to fill this hole. And so ego, you're waiting for the next time. What's the next thing that's going to happen in the next episode? And that's why binge watching works so well. And I've been guilty of that myself. What's the first time that I started doing that was with 24. What's going to happen the next day? What's going to happen the next hour? And there's many other ones out there, of course. And so, as creatures of meaning, we desire this element of certainty in our lives. What is important to us? What do we belong with? What is our community? And certainly in this day and age, which is kind of interesting in the sense of that we're so much more easily connected through the internet and social media and everything else, we're actually even more disconnected. And there's reasons for that. And we're not going to go into those reasons. But as much as we are more disconnected, we have to ask ourselves, which are the cultures that stay very well connected? If we just look at south of the border, I just love the fact that, people are still gathering over the weekends. Families are gathering together to stay connected, to help each other, to give the support, to mentor, to educate. We don't have that anymore. We're in this desperate search to belong to something. And that's what happens with all these crazy narratives that are coming out. And people bashing and name calling and all sorts of things. And again, not to get specific with any of that, but it's happening everywhere. And so then the question that we have to ask ourselves when we're fighting for something, what is it about this fight that's so important to us? Is it because we feel better about ourselves? Because we're declaring that we believe in something outside of ourselves? See, all of that, in my opinion, is just quite ethereal, which means it's evasive, it's fluid, it changes. People will be changing what they fight for. We've seen it all the time. It happens all the time. Every couple of years is a new story. There's a new fight. Why is that? What happened to the old fight? Did that ever get resolved? Or is this one just that much more interesting now? Got bored of the last one because maybe there weren't enough people talking about it. So now you're on for a new fight. And again, I don't want to get specific on any of them. But when any large group of people or small group of people start making claims that their way is better than yours, and then you feel obligated in one form or another to join them, is that the right thing? Is that what you need to be doing? And so for a lot of the work that I get to do, it's really more of a question of character. What's the quality of your character? And what are the things that you value? The process of personal development over the last 20 years, I've learned a lot of things about beliefs and values. And understanding that the order of our values also will determine how we make our choices. You see, if you value money as the top, and then you value health as the bottom, well, then guess what? You're going to have poor health. And so the question is then, what are those values? Honesty, integrity, loyalty, truth, discipline, compassion, empathy, connection, family, mission, spirituality, religion, career. What is it? And there's no right or wrong in any of those. It's the ones that you believe in most, and unconsciously, we're running through this algorithm all the time. So if health is the most important thing, then maybe you're spending all your time in the gym and exercise and everything else, and you forget your family. Same thing with wealth, same thing with career. We will violate our values also to satisfy our needs. This is a concept I learned from Tony Robbins. And he talks about the 6 behavioral needs: significance, certainty, love, connection, variety. Right? These are the 4 top ones, and then the spiritual ones, or as he calls them, primary ones. And the spiritual ones are growth and contribution. And so depending on the importance of these needs, I mean, our life really is centered around satisfying these needs in a manner of which that it makes us feel more fulfilled. And the reason we don't do certain things is because it doesn't fulfill these needs. But then maybe perhaps we've got this myopic view of a particular thing. We don't really understand how it truly can fulfill those needs. But we also must consider the values. So what is it that you value? And here's the thing, unless you begin to explore this, unless you really begin to ask yourselves, what is important, or what is it that I really want, really? And there's two reallys in that statement. And it's a statement I've been using for quite some time. Because first of all, it begins with what we don't know that we don't know. What don't you know? That makes all the difference. So I love that question. This is one I learned from Keith Cunningham, brilliant guy. And what he says is this, is that you need to take time every week. Just take 45 minutes out of your time every single week. You turn everything off. Turn the TV off, turn the radio off, lock your door, have a piece of paper and a pencil. And the piece of paper and pencil is really important. You can use a pen if you want, not a computer. And you write down, what is it that I don't know? What is it that I don't see? And it could be generic, just like that, or it could be more specific to a particular problem. And he relates this to his own experience. And then I've also heard that one of the reasons that Bill Gates was able to pivot in his life is that he learned the same idea from Warren Buffett. You got to take that time for reflection. You got to be able to see the big picture, but also what's outside of that picture. And what's missing? What else is out there that you're not seeing? So what's out there that you're not seeing? And so in our world of craziness, there's two things that are really important for all of us. Actually, there's three things that we all need to be doing. First, we've got to own our own stuff. I was going to use a different word there. But we've got to own our own stuff. I'm in charge of my brain. And so I'm in charge of my behavior. I'm the only one that's allowed to be responsible. And let me rephrase it. That can take responsibility for my behavior. I can't blame anybody else. Nobody else made me do something. Look, I'm in a relationship and we got our moments. And I have my moments for a lot of different reasons. Maybe it's just the biochemistry. Maybe my glucose is low. Maybe my glucose is high. Who knows? I got an ache here, a pain there, or concern over there. And suddenly the smallest thing is now the biggest things and I get upset. Can I blame that other person for that? Of course not. So with owning my world, knowing that I'm driving the bus, I'm in charge of my mind, I'm in charge of my behavior, then I got to respect the world of other people. Got to respect them. Don't have to like them, but I have to respect their model of the world. They're going to see things very, very differently than I will. And that's important to recognize. There is a different definition of selfishness. I love this one. The truth is that we actually got to take care of ourselves first. We really do. And I think too many people forget that. They're so focused on taking care of everyone else first But there's an interesting psychological dynamic with that too, right? I mean, we're all doing the best we can with the resources that we have, based on that programming that we were talking about. That programming that's deviating us from what's really important for our higher self. But that's okay. That's something, we'll work on, obviously. But the point is that this whole concept of selfishness, it's really truly selfish when it is that you demand that other people live by your standards. That's selfishness. It's not selfish by when somebody else lives by their own standards. That's not being selfish. That's their model of the world. That's their belief. And again, you know where this happens in your life right now, especially in this time. Again, not getting specific, but you figure out. Demanding that other people do certain things. When the truth is, it may not be the right thing. And so that's why we have to constantly ask ourselves, what do I really want, really? What do I want? And listen to that inner voice. There's a lot of truism in that inner voice. It's that intuition, it's that gut. It's that place in our mind that's putting all the pieces together, all the fragments that we've learned over the years, all those references that we've learned over the years, telling us, no, this is the way it needs to be. Stop using your head right now. Stop using your cognitive brain, if you will, your thinking brain, your intellectual brain, your logical brain. Stop using that right now and just trust your intuition. And if you find out that your intuition was wrong, well, okay. But the times I haven't listened to my inner voice, it's not that I didn't regret it. I mean, there was not much regret. It's just realizing, shoot, I need to do a better job listening to my inner voice, because it's speaking the truth. So we got to speak our truth. We got to go after what it is that we really want, really. And be able to do that in the context of the world around us. One of the key things that I learned from the Waitaha tribe, these are the water bears tribe, mainly in New Zealand. It's one of the oldest tribes on the planet. And they were nomads. And so the races it's not a single race. It's all races included. It's an all-inclusive tribe, the Waitaha. And what I learned from them is there's only one rule. I mean, let's think about it for a moment. Wouldn't it be nice just to have one rule? It would really simplify life. Just to have one rule. And that rule is do no harm. Don't harm anyone else. You're not allowed to do that. Don't harm anybody else. Own your own stuff. Own your own shit, basically, right? Own it. And let other people be the way they want to be. Now, of course, are they going to necessarily follow your line of thinking or your ethos? No, of course not. I just had this interesting experience where I chose to trust somebody. And in that process of trusting, I think I got burned. I mean, has that ever happened to you? But you know what? I like to try to trust people. And then if they turn around and take advantage of that trust, okay, that's right. They're doing the best they can with the resources that I have. I have to ask myself, how attached am I to this particular thing or this particular event? See, that's the question. I could get really upset about this event. Actually, I was in the process of selling one of my cars. And, trusting, it's been a process for over 9 months, actually. and just trusting certain people to do certain things, and they didn't deliver. And then I trusted somebody else, and then they did something interesting, which I'm not going to reveal. And then it's like, okay, well, you violated my rules of integrity, so I'm not going to sell the car to you. Okay, that's fine. We've got that choice every moment. Every moment is a choice. And so again, it's like, who's driving the bus? And how much time are you giving yourself to make the right decisions? Are you impulsive? Are you triggered and reacting? And how's that going to help? I love the reminder from Shamin Shirzad from Positive Intelligence when he reminds people, what you want to do is you want to be able to look back in a year's time and ask yourself, did I do the right thing? Did I do the right thing for me? Did it align with my values? Did it align with what's important to me? So again, that's what we need to do all the time. Everything matters. Even this recording. It's interesting because, most of my recordings are interviews with other people. Why? Because it's a dynamic interplay of thoughts and ideas, and it's magical creation in the moment. I love that part. But it's also easy for me. It's a lot easier for me to have these short interviews, and as I'm picking the brains of other people and their perspective of the world, so that I can share that with others and learn at the same time, versus me just rambling on, for an hour. But this is also important because, my purpose on life, my passion in life is to create change, enhance life, and develop peaceful awareness. And it stems again from the fact that we don't know what we don't know that's going to make the difference. And so if I can share something, if I can share an insight with you, the listener, that's going to make a difference for you, even if it's just one thing, even if you just got one thing out of today's conversation, that's awesome. I'm not here to preach, okay, this is the way you need to live. I'm just recapping the things I've learned from others. And there's so many brilliant people out there. That's the point. There's so many great thought leaders that are constantly teaching us new ways to look at things, better ways to look at things. Because I believe that for most of us, if not all of us, we didn't learn all the things we're supposed to learn to be that best version of ourselves. Ultimately, what is your purpose? I think in a generic term, the purpose is to be our best version. And like what I learned from Brian Johnson from Optimize, and be of the greatest service to the world. So what is the game that we're playing, and how well are we playing it? And so what I love what he's done, he's reviewed all these different authors, different books, these different memes, and he presents them in a format that's easily digestible, and so that you can quickly learn. Let's face it, we've got these busy lives. We're constantly, taking care of all these obligations that we have. That's my big thing nowadays, is somewhat overwhelmed with all the things that I got to take care of. But whose fault is that, right? I live in what I call a multi-dimensional world. Some people might call it ADHD, but I don't feel that I have that. Some other people might disagree. But the truth is that my brain is actually working in all different levels all the time. It's constantly shifting back and forth. There's no such thing as multitasking, but there is such a thing as the executive brain constantly going back and forth on all different things. And part of it has to do with the fact that everything takes time. And I'm working on this brilliant virtual training program for doctors that's going to give them access to a new way of looking at their business model that really doesn't work anymore. And regaining that authority, if you will, that central role in people's lives that they must have so that they can help people get the health and wellness that they deserve. See, that's the big problem today, is that people are lacking the health and wellness. I mean, if you just look at the statistics, I mean, it's awful. I mean, 90%, 95% of the American population is nutritionally deficient. You know, again, 90% is dehydrated, right? Simple things that could absolutely shift people's health and wellness. And when you put that in context, the context is this could be a much more productive society on the one hand. But on the other hand, this would be a society that would be a lot more calm and together because they're healthy, mind and body. You know, so my multidimensionality is that as I'm developing this program, which I thought I started back in 2019, right before COVID hit, you know, so I was already pivoting into the internet area. Actually, I was doing that many years before, anyhow, with other programs. But the point is that it's still taking me a year and a half, and I'm constantly adding beautiful elements to it because I believe that our doctors need to reframe their approach with their patients, develop a new culture based on old wisdom and old practices in this new modern world. Because if they don't, the problem is that they can't meet the patient's demands based on the new awareness that their patients, or I like to call them clients, now have. As a doctor myself, I don't have patients, I have clients. They come to me because they trust me with the services and the information that I'm going to give them. And so what's important in this is that we've got to understand that market. We've got to understand that new dynamic. And quite frankly, we've got to understand this whole new thing called the internet compendium, right? The medical compendium that's now on the internet. You can get so much information and misinformation on the internet regarding all sorts of health issues. And so who is that one person that can help you navigate? Well, it's supposed to be the doc that you trust that's going to take the time to learn these things. But their problem is they're so myopic in their own particular field. So they can't help you. So who's going to help you? The biohackers? Are they the ones that are going to help you as they're selling their devices and their supplements or new procedures, if you will? And believe me, there's a lot of them out there that are really amazing. You know, I, for one, am going to these conferences for these biohackers because there's some absolutely brilliant people out there. But how do you sort them out? How do you know which ones are the good ones? How do you know the ones, or let me rephrase it, how do you know that whatever particular hack is okay for you? Because not all of them will be. But who's going to be responsible for that? Who's going to be responsible for your guidance? You know, there's only so much as a consumer that you can understand and gather about what's going to be right or wrong for you. I'm so impressed by people who've done the homework. They're dedicated to understanding this inside out, and particularly the naturopaths. You know, and I for me, it's kind of comical because these people, the naturopaths, are the ones leading the way today for you to optimize your health and wellness. They're not MDs. They're naturopaths. This is the stuff as doctors that we should know about. This is the stuff that we did know at one point. Very limited, of course, because 80 years ago, we didn't know a fraction of what we know today. So getting back to this whole multidimensionality aspect, and it's really this, is that everything takes time to develop. And so I can't wait for that. And so I get into other things. So I'm constantly shifting. But the point that I'm getting at is that I'm happy doing this. Whatever the ultimate outcome is, I'm driving the bus. I'm happy right now. I feel fulfilled. And I don't have to bang on somebody's door and complain to them that the way that they're living is not right. That's not your job. Your job, if you want to make a difference, and quoting Gandhi, to be the change you want to see in the world. If you absolutely believe in something, then be that change. But own it with intelligence, own it with awareness, own it with understanding. That's what's important. Now, the challenge that we have is, where do we get that information? And who's giving you that information? And how do you get to trust that information? That's the challenge. And again, not getting specific in the world of, information and misinformation. We owe it to ourselves to identify the people that we can then ultimately trust. I love this whole thing of the Clubhouse right now, because you can hear the authenticity in people's voices. It's a challenge watching the news these days. And it's a challenge because, they're not congruent. The words are not congruent with their body language. I mean, you see it, you feel it. And so it's hard to find out what's that information that you can trust. And so when you connect with that authenticity with somebody else, when they're not pulling the wool over you, then you can go with that. You don't get that when you read things on the internet. And the truth is, when it comes to health and wellness, I mean, let's be honest. These are all scientific trials, and the way one trial does it is different than the other. And so then, their results are opposite of the other one. So that's one of the big challenges in science today, is that, how disparate the views are on certain things. And we find that very, very pervasively in medicine. And the problem with that is that as physicians, we're brainwashed to say we need to be right? Your patients, your clients expect you to be right, not to make mistakes. It's the Hippocratic oath, right? Do no harm. So when we're so focused on that, then sometimes we get really hung up on a certain idea that we've got all the evidence that this is right. And then this other idea over here, it's got to be wrong. But what we see so often in science and medicine is that these brilliant people with these brilliant ideas from a century ago are now being proven right, when then they were outcast. They were ignored. So the point is, again, you got to do your homework. You've got to develop the awareness. And it starts off with you. And only then, is it fair to then share with other people your truth through love? That's a phrase that I got from a good dear friend of mine and coach, Chad Cooper. The 7 aspects of a legendary lifestyle. One of them is speak your truth to love. What does that mean? You're just speaking your truth, what you truly believe in, and not making it somebody else's truth. You're fully owning that truth. Okay, this is what I believe in. And we must respect that. Because at the end of the day, what if they're right and we're wrong? What if they're right and we're wrong? And we find out years later that because of us bashing them, they made the wrong decision. Why? Because they didn't want to be outcast. So it always comes down to the quality of our character. What is our character? And so I wrote a few things, and I'm going to read them as I'm working towards a really incredible program called Awakening Giants TV. The brainchild of this is Sprite Loriano. And this is it's real TV. It's not reality TV. It's real TV. There's a big difference, in my opinion. And this is capturing the courage, the compassion, the love, the integrity of individuals who are choosing to overcome a particular challenge in their life so that they can go to that next level. That next level in their personal life, in their career, but more importantly, their impact on the world. And you watch them, overcome these challenges, their own personal fears, getting out of the comfort zone. And it's a breakthrough for them. It's the freedom for them to then be even that better version of themselves, because it's that better version of themselves that becomes a better servant for others, speaking their truth and giving their wisdom, their resources to the world to benefit from. I mean, how cool is that? And you can be a part of that. You can be a part of that in two ways. You can be just, an observer and a viewer that's enrolled and engaged in the process and bring some of those elements in your own life. Or you can actually become a giant and get that captured on film and get that viewed by millions of people. Your message, your brand can go out there. But it's right, it's about legacy. It's about courage. It's about compassion. It's about contribution. And so here's one of my blogs that I'm publishing. Oh, this one's leadership. Hold on, let me get the legacy. This is the one I really like. Where's the legacy? So here's the one. In the past few years, we've seen a lot of change in America. With all this change, it's hard to keep up with what is going on and be informed about our country. However, there are some things that remain constant. The need for an open mind to new ideas and people, someone who will stand up for those who can't do it themselves, and someone who refuses to live in fear. These qualities will always matter because they're the essence of what makes America great, no matter how much time has passed. Where do you believe you can make a difference? And why should it matter that your ideas are the ones to follow? These are the questions we must ask ourselves, because the truth is, we all know that things must be better than they are now. It is what has driven creativity and innovation for thousands of years. We now live in a time when more opportunities are available to speak our truths and make that difference for those that don't have the wherewithal to do what you can. What fires you up in the morning when dissonance, or which dissonance in your life bothers you the most, that you are ready to recalibrate into harmony? Let us be careful in pointing the finger to presumed injustices in the world with name-calling and false narratives. Like Gandhi said, Be the change you want to see in the world. And that change begins within, and it's our journey. And that is why Awakening Giants is such a remarkable opportunity to witness the transformations from a place of courage, authenticity, and compassion for all of humanity. Our gift and our call to you: make your legacy great and be part of the Awakening Giants journey. So whether you're part of this journey or not, it is about your legacy. It is about different qualities that we must tap into. And so here's another one that I like. I also wrote this one, obviously. So we often hear the word leadership thrown around, but what does it really mean? By definition, it is a person who leads. Leads what and how? And is where they're leading to good? And then to state that there is no leadership here. By whose standard? And for which outcome? What makes a true leader is one that first takes accountability for oneself and owns all that they are. Second, believing in where they're leading to. This makes them authentic. Some people will call this having a vision. Then, of course, they must understand the needs of the people they're leading and serve those needs first. Here, the authentic leader cares about the worldview of those they're looking to lead and helping them fulfill a part of it. Once understood, it takes a matter of communication, language, and inspiration, emotion, to then get engagement. I like what Tony Robbins says. Leadership is about teaching others to become leaders. Too often, the inauthentic are leading for themselves or are frightened that someone might actually do a better job. Truth is, we want to find those that can lead and take over. Everyone can be a leader and an exemplar for others. This capacity is within us, and sometimes leaders only show up in moments of crisis. Every problem is the genesis of creativity and solutions. We do not have to wait till the problem arises. We can also imagine how things can be better and rise to that challenge. But if you're always living in the comfort zone, it's like crack. You get addicted to it and stay in the comfort zone until a crisis happens to wake you up. I say get out of your comfort zone now and try on a new challenge and discover the hidden potential within yourself. What is something you always wanted to do and just did not move forward with it or were too scared? Take that chance to vibrate at a high level. On the outside of the comfort zone is where you can be truly alive and find the better you. So what are you reading? What are you listening to? Who are you listening to? Every morning, I pick up my phone and check the latest news items. And I don't know why I really do that. Because most of it doesn't make me feel good. But let me rephrase it. I don't feel good when I read these things. But the truth is that I can't live in a bubble. I can't just be ignorant of the plights of humanity in the craziest fashions that we get to read every single day. And so having that touch to reality, and having a vision that my personal vision is developing that peaceful awareness by creating change and enhancing life. Everything that I do is designed for that. It's been my mission since I was a kid. And that's why I became a doctor. And that's why I like plastic surgery most, because it's the art of transformation. I just went to several levels above what my colleagues have been doing. and that is the transformation of the whole person. Brain, body, and energy. And tapping into that intelligence to help people make the transformations that they need to make. Because ultimately, it's the only way that we'll get into that best version of ourselves. So my question then for you, what are those action steps that you're taking based on your vision, your idea of that best version of yourself, and how you can serve the world, how you can be an impact to the world? Rather than tearing things down, be generative, be constructive, build things up. It's part of the purpose of this platform that I have, Prescription for Your Transformation, is tapping into that collective wisdom and developing the space for generative collaboration. We can collaborate together. We can raise the vibration, but we can't do it when all we do is look at what's wrong. As Tony Robbins said, what's wrong is always available to you, and so is what's right. Every moment that I get triggered, I've got a choice. I can see what's wrong, or I can find out what can be right about this. What can I learn from this? How can I evolve from this? You know, it's Ray Dalio's mantra, one of the most successful financial people on the planet. And it's this post-failure high. Every failure is a high for him because it's teaching him how to be more successful in the future. So how do you want to be more successful in the future? What do you want to incorporate in your brain? What do you want to learn? Who do you want to listen to? And remember, it's all about partnerships with the people around us, working together for a better world, a world that can be right. I'm Dr. Bart Rademacher. This is Prescription for Your Transformation. Real people, real conversations, and real success, giving you my own monologue for a change. Integrating all the wonderful things that I've learned over the years from all these amazing people for the last 5 years. And we'll be continuing that. So thank you, and I'll be back.
Thanks for listening to Dr. Rademacher's Prescription for Transformation. Join Dr. Bart Rademacher live right here on StarWorldWideNetworks.com or on demand 24/7.